Yes, I am completely mad. Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great Player. And in today's episode, we're answering a question that was posted for us on the suggested topic page of www.greatgm.com. And that question was, how do you step out of your comfort zone as a player? The person who asked the question, I didn't get their name, said that they found that role-playing, same character, time in and time out, or even trying to create new characters and play them differently is a bit of a challenge, and that they find that they get into a rut, playing the same basic character time and time again, and often that character is themselves. And they don't know how to step out of their comfort zone. Well, I've got 6 methods here that I used to prescribe to people to try and overcome the issue of being yourself in every single game, regardless of whatever system, setting, race, character, class, type you are playing. For a lot of us, it is difficult to even think of trying to be slightly different from how we are, and for very good reason. We don't know how it is to be anything other than us. So it's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? Well, the very first thing that you can do in terms of stepping out of your comfort zone is trying to understand why you are in that particular space. There are a lot of role players out there who are kind of timid and reserved and shy and just don't want to make a fool of themselves in front of others because they're afraid of what others might think. There are others who simply are so bolsterous and gregarious that they don't possibly even entertain the notion that there's another way of playing a character or not being themselves. And yet there are others who are so petrified that this is such a childish act that they will be judged by their peers or by themselves even, that they can't step out. So if you can identify why it is that you don't want to step out of your comfort zone, or why it is that you can't step out of your comfort zone, that's a step in the right direction. Now, an exercise that I used to do when I was teaching people how to public speak, really, that's such fantastic English. I should go and join an English school and teach others English, right? When I was teaching other people how to speak in public, what I would do is the Dead Poets Society trick, where you stand on a desk and you scream out your name, and you just go mad, and you just let your hair down, you're and me, and me, and me, and me, and me, and you will pay attention to me, for I am awesome! Do that in front of your players. Do that in front of your fellow players and your GM, and I bet you they'll laugh and they'll smile and they'll say, you're not awesome, you are special. But you're also breaking that first barrier to stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's by being free to explore other aspects. Well, I don't know if I want to be a lady and speak like this all the time because I feel like I'm a little bit of a tit. Well, with an accent like that, yes, you are. And there's a whole bunch of feminists right now who are busy writing long essays about mocking the fairer sex. Dear God. It's just a point that I'm trying to prove. If you are not comfortable with letting your hair down in front of other people and you need vast quantities of alcohol or roofies in order to get there, then one of the good ways of doing it is sitting with your group saying, guys, shall we get into this role-playing thing? Shall we get out of our comfort zones? We'll stop being us, reserved, quiet people, and be that orc who speaks loudly and violently and sticks his jaw out because he wants to be aggressive and he's got his tusks sitting here and everything is challenged. How dare you look at me like that? I'll eat your face off. Ask them. They might say yes. So the first step, obviously, you've identified why you don't want to step out of your comfort zone or why you can't step out of your comfort zone. The next step is then to try something over the top. Now, you don't have to be over the top all of the time, and that orc would get a little bit tiresome after a while, not to mention your voice would take strain after a while. Everything in moderation. Now, to get everybody comfortable with the idea of stepping out of their comfort zone, and once they've acknowledged that they are in a comfort zone, because that's important. Some people go, oh, but I role play all the time. You do? Really? When? Some people don't know that they're not playing the same person all the time and that they're not playing themselves. So a way to get around that is to run a one-shot game. Ask your GM, hey GM, can we run a game where we're all a bunch of goblin kids? Can we run a game where, I don't know, we're in a universe where everybody shouts at one another, or we're in a universe where everyone uses hand signals to communicate? Maybe? So running a one-shot allows you to step away from the characters that you love and adore and have been repeating time and time and time and time again, and to explore something new. Now, how do you explore that person? I'm looking at my notes. How do you take the idea of being somebody else and then be somebody else? You're not a trained actor, you haven't done Stanislav's method acting, you haven't tried this and that and this and that and that. How do you do it? Well, one of the easiest ways to do it is to imitate a character from a film. Choose a character who's very different to yourself. So if you're a loud, gregarious type, well, why don't you choose a reserved and quiet type so that you can look at how they're portrayed in the film, work out what it is about them. Is it their neatness? Is it their preciseness? Is it the calmness with which they approach the situation? And then you adopt that. So for myself, I would adopt someone who's very quiet and very reserved to explore that space, to move out of my comfort zone. Or I would explore someone who's very nervous and very scared and very unsure of themselves all the time, if I wanted to move away from the character that I normally portray. So imitating a character from a film is fantastic. And remember that one shot that I was telling you about? There is nothing wrong with you saying to your GM, hey, listen, I would really like to step out of my comfort zone, and I've spoken to my fellow players and they would really like to step out of their comfort zone as well. So can we run a one-shot that's set in this movie and we'll take on the roles of the characters in the movie? We just see if we would play the movie differently. It's a fun experience for your GM because now they watch the movie and they go, wow, that was an interesting character twist that happened in the movie because of the characters doing this and that. How would it be if I reran that scenario with my players trying to portray the characters in the film, and what decisions would they make? You can then compare your own decision-making with the film's characters' decision-making to see how close you got to imitating the brash colonel or the headstrong co-pilot or the plucky adventurer. So that's one way of testing yourself in terms of trying to get a benchmark for what is outside your comfort zone. Another one, which is always fun, provided that everybody takes it as being fun, is to go to the GM and say, GM, all our characters, this is just so that we can step out of our comfort zone. And again, I've spoken to my fellow players. I would like a scenario where our characters swap bodies. And the way we would express that is that I would pretend to be Brian, Brian would pretend to be Sophie, and Sophie would pretend to be Harriet. And so we all swapped, and Harriet would pretend to be me. So we are pretending to be each other's characters. In other words, impersonate your friends. Most of your friends have different types of personalities to yourself, generally speaking, and it's sometimes fun to try and impersonate them because you're going to be picking up on the caricatures that you have in your head of your friends. If they're loud and gregarious, you'll be a little bit more loud and a little bit more gregarious because you're trying to convey that to them. So it can be a very interesting exercise to see how you interpret your friends and, more importantly, how they interpret you. But again, in this space of everyone exploring out of their comfort zone, it becomes a space of fun and entertainment, provided that you keep your mimicry, your imitation, decent, honourable, and in the best interests of having fun. Once you've kind of got the idea of playing something that you're not, of being timid, of being brash, of being reserved, of being logical, of being emotional, once you've got that into your space, a very good way of then staying there, because far too often we go, oh, this is what we're going to do. Yes, we're going to be different. We're not going to be ourselves. yes, we're still not ourselves an hour later, and we've kind of slipped back to being ourselves because it's easier than continuously being this other person where you have to think about what they would think about, and you have to think about how they would think about answering those kinds of questions. It can become laborious. But you don't want to slip back into good old groove. You're trying to get rid of groove. So one way of doing that, and this certainly helps me when I go LARPing, I usually put on an accent for the particular character, and I've got one character who's kind of got this kind of voice. He's a little bit of a sneaky rat type creature who runs around buying secrets for everybody and then trading them off, buying favors, making connections, that kind of thing. Running around just being a rat, trying to make a living, an honest living in an honest world. Or is it a dishonest living in an honest world? Or is it an honest living in a dishonest world? I can never remember. Either way, if there's something that you want, I can get it for you, if you know what I mean. I'll just write your name in my little book here so that I can sell what you wanted to somebody else who wants to know what you wanted, so that I can sell that to them too. And then everybody makes a great profit at the end. You know what I mean? So fantastic. What can I get you? I try and stay in character as much as possible. And if someone calls out, "Hey, guy, what are you doing?" I don't turn around. "My name is Tobin, thank you very much. Tobin, and if you want something, I'll get it for you. But if you don't, well, I'll find it for you anyway. There's only a small charge." I try and stay in character as much as possible. And when fellow players turn to me and they try and drag me into the real world, I say, "I'm begging your pardon, but I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Are those people real, or is they in a book? If you want a book, I can get you a book. I'll get you a book. Does it have to be those particular people, or can it be any kind of people? Or maybe it's a book about animals. Would you prefer a book about animals? I can get you a book about animals." I steer away from any kind of real life interpretation. I steer away from any kind of invasion that takes me out of Tobin's mind and into my own. That allows me to stay in Tobin's space longer, and over time it's easier to become Tobin and to stay as Tobin, or to be Relin, my cheerful elf. It doesn't matter. Avoid losing your focus, and you will find that it's easier and easier to stay there, and eventually to be able to disengage, have a chat, and then re-engage as your character, and almost not have to go through that whole mental process of getting back into that space. Another way of breaking ground or breaking out the space, if you're too nervous to attempt to impersonate one another, or to run a movie scene, or to try and stay there once you get there, is play an animal character. Now, growling, barking, mewling, braying, whinnying, whooping, roaring. I hate the word roaring because I can't say it properly, I don't think. Roaring, squeaking, squawking, all of those kind of things break you away from who you are. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole furry subculture, as fascinating and as wonderful as it is, because it's a similar kind of idea. But if I am bark, 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 I'm terrible at barking, but if I have to bark or growl, and that's the only way that I can engage with my fellow players, apart from saying, I run around the tree and then I turn around and I go, and they have to try and interpret what's going on, because in those situations it's going to get frustrating for you as the player, and you're stuck with going, caw, 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 and then not responding. It's going to make you more animated. It's going to get you out of your comfort zone. It's going to get you out of your personal space as you're trying to move around, and you're describing, I flap from branch to branch, and I'm just hopping from foot to foot, caw, caw, caw. And they're still not getting it. I do little circles, I land on the ground, and I hop from foot to foot, and I try and draw a symbol. You have to become more animated. You have to become more lively. You have to become this crow or dog or cat or whatever it is, in order to really get into the idea of how to share that information. Well, I hope this has answered your question on how to step out of your comfort zone and how to maybe have fun whilst doing so and explore something that you haven't necessarily explored before. If it is, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. Head on over to www.greatgm.com, greatgamemaster.com, let me get that right, and leave your comments, suggestions for new topics there. Engage, watch videos, look at cool stuff that we've found that we think you might like to have at home. Do all of that kind of stuff. You can join us on Patreon. I run a weekly role-playing game for 4 lucky people. And I say lucky people, I'm including myself in that. I am very lucky to play with those people. And you can join us there. We're weekly. There's one-on-one coaching. There's Q&A sessions, live Q&A sessions as well, which you can participate in. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff that you can get on the Patreon sites as well. And until next time, I wish you and yours, bye.